It happened in a crowded room, the kind of place where cameras flash, reporters shout over each other, and every word spoken can turn into a headline within minutes. A well-known liberal journalist, confident in their stance and perhaps underestimating the weight of their words, made a remark about Barron Trump. The comment, meant to be a jab, echoed through the space. Some laughed, some looked uncomfortable, and others waited to see what would happen next. What happens when someone crosses the line and takes aim at the son of a former U.S. president? Most people expected silence or an awkward attempt to brush it off. But what they got was something completely different, something that left the room in stunned silence. Barron Trump's response wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive, but it was powerful enough to stop everyone in their tracks. This moment wasn't just another minor political controversy. It was bigger than that. It was about respect, the way the media treats public figures' families, and the fine line between criticism and personal attacks. Why did this journalist feel comfortable mocking Barron? Was it because of his last name? And more importantly, why did his reaction shake up the room the way it did? To truly understand what happened, we need to look at Barron Trump himself, the way he's been treated by the media over the years, the expectations placed on him, and how this moment fits into a much larger conversation. Barron Trump has always been a bit of a mystery compared to other children of U.S. presidents. Born in 2006, he grew up in the spotlight but rarely stepped into it himself. Unlike his older siblings, who have been vocal in politics and the media, Barron has mostly stayed in the background. His early years were spent in New York City, attending the prestigious Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School before moving to Washington, D.C., when his father, Donald Trump, became president. Even then, he kept a low profile, only making occasional public appearances with his parents. Despite his efforts to stay out of the public eye, the media has still found ways to bring him into the conversation. Over the years, there have been multiple moments where journalists and public figures have made unnecessary comments about him. Whether it was about his height, his facial expressions at events, or simply the fact that he wasn't as visible as other presidential children, Barron has been the subject of unfair attention. Some comedians and journalists have crossed the line, treating him as a public figure instead of a private citizen. What makes Barron different from past presidential children is that he has never actively sought the spotlight. Many children of U.S. presidents have taken on public roles, whether through activism, business, or media appearances. Sasha and Malia Obama grew up under heavy media attention. Chelsea Clinton was often seen at events alongside her parents, and even the Bush twins made headlines in their younger years. But Barron has taken a different path, choosing to stay out of political discussions and avoiding social media. This has made the rare moments when he is mentioned even more noticeable, especially when the media chooses to focus on him for the wrong reasons. The moment that set everything off happened at a public event where people least expected it. The setting was a casual panel discussion, where a well-known liberal journalist was speaking about politics and media coverage. The crowd was a mix of reporters, political commentators, and everyday people who had come to listen. At first, everything seemed normal, typical political debates, discussions about policies, and media responsibility. But then, out of nowhere, the journalist decided to take a swipe at Barron Trump. The journalist, who had a history of making sharp and controversial comments, casually threw Barron's name into the conversation. While discussing the Trump family's influence, they made a remark about Barron, implying that he was awkward and out of place or strangely silent for someone in such a powerful family. The way it was said wasn't just a passing joke, it was meant to mock him. The audience reacted with mixed emotions. Some chuckled, while others shifted uncomfortably, realizing that this was crossing a line. As soon as the comment hit social media, reactions exploded. People were quick to call out the journalist, saying it was unfair to target a teenager who had never been involved in politics. Some defended the journalist, arguing that public figures, especially those related to presidents, should expect criticism. However, a large majority saw it differently. Barron had never publicly commented on politics, had never spoken out about his father's presidency, and had done nothing to invite this kind of attention. Many users pointed out that children of politicians should be off-limits, no matter who their parents are. Even some who were openly critical of Donald Trump agreed that Barron should not be dragged into public scrutiny. The backlash grew so strong that within hours, hashtags like #LeaveBarronAlone and #BarronTrump began trending. News outlets picked up the controversy, discussing whether the journalist had gone too far. Some fellow journalists defended their colleague, but many prominent figures, even those from liberal circles, condemned the comment. The journalist likely didn't expect such a reaction, but what happened next made the situation even more intense. Barron Trump's response to the public mocking was something no one saw coming. With the media storm building up, many expected a strong reaction from him or his family. Some thought he might release a statement, fire back on social media, or have his father, Donald Trump, speak on his behalf. But what happened instead caught everyone off guard. Barron didn't say a single word. He remained completely silent. No public statement, no social media post, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any response he could have given. People who saw him in public during the days following the controversy noted that he carried himself with the same calm and composed demeanor as always. He wasn't flustered, he didn't appear angry, and he didn't engage with the drama. Those close to the Trump family described him as someone who has always been reserved, and this moment proved it. Instead of letting the controversy consume him, he let the public decide for themselves who was in the wrong. This reaction was unexpected for several reasons. Many teenagers, when put under public scrutiny, might lash out, respond emotionally, or get defensive. Even public figures much older than Barron have struggled to handle criticism with grace. Some have tried to fight back and ended up making things worse. Others have let anger take over, only to regret it later. But Barron took a different route. He let the journalist's own words speak for themselves. His silence made the journalist's comment look even worse because it showed that the attack had no real effect on him. Experts in public relations pointed out that his response was a perfect example of how powerful composure can be. In a world where people react instantly to controversy, especially online, Barron's approach was rare. It reminded many of past moments when public figures reacted poorly to criticism and faced serious backlash. By doing nothing, Barron turned the situation against his critic. People admired his maturity, especially for someone his age. Eyewitnesses who had followed the story closely said that his silence changed the way people viewed him. Some who had never paid much attention to Barron before now saw him as someone who carried himself with quiet strength. Others, even those who weren't Trump supporters, acknowledged that attacking a teenager who had done nothing wrong was simply unfair. The lack of response wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of confidence. As the controversy continued, the journalist who had mocked him faced growing criticism. Some even started questioning their credibility. Meanwhile, Barron stayed out of the headlines, proving that sometimes the best response is no response at all. The media reaction to the incident was immediate, but the response depended on which side was reporting it. Conservative outlets were quick to call out the journalist, accusing them of crossing a line by targeting a teenager who has stayed out of politics. They highlighted how unfair it was to drag Barron Trump into public scrutiny when he had never sought attention. Many commentators pointed out that if the roles were reversed, if a conservative journalist had mocked the child of a Democratic president, the backlash would have been much stronger. Some even argued that this was just another example of bias in the media. On the other hand, some liberal media sources either downplayed the incident or justified it. Some argued that public figures, even children of presidents, are not entirely off-limits. A few dismissed the outrage as an overreaction, suggesting that Barron, as the son of a former president, should expect some level of public attention. However, not all liberal voices defended the journalist. Some admitted that attacking a teenager was unnecessary and distasteful, no matter his last name. Social media exploded with reactions. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were flooded with posts defending Barron. Many people, regardless of their political views, agreed that mocking him was unfair. Hashtags calling out the journalist began trending, and people started sharing old clips and articles about how other presidential children had been treated differently. Some users pointed out that Sasha and Malia Obama were largely protected from harsh criticism during Barack Obama's presidency, while Chelsea Clinton also faced media scrutiny but was defended by many journalists. This led to a larger debate about a clear double standard. Why do some presidential children get left alone while others become targets? Many argued that the media is selective in how they treat political families. When it comes to Democratic presidents, their children are often shielded from attacks. But when it's a Republican president's child, the same courtesy isn't always given. The debate sparked discussions about media ethics, journalistic responsibility, and whether the children of politicians should ever be fair game for public criticism. As the backlash grew, some journalists and media figures who had initially ignored the issue started to backtrack. Some admitted that the comments about Barron were unnecessary, while others tried to shift focus back to larger political discussions. Meanwhile, the journalist who made the remarks faced increasing criticism, not just from conservatives but from people across the spectrum who believed they had gone too far. The incident became yet another example of how media bias and double standards play a role in shaping public perception. After the backlash, the journalist faced immense pressure to address their comments. At first, they remained silent, but as the criticism grew louder, they finally issued a statement. The apology, however, felt more like damage control than genuine regret. It was carefully worded, saying that their comments were misinterpreted and that they never intended to offend Barron Trump personally. Instead of fully taking responsibility, they shifted some of the blame onto the public, implying that people were overreacting. This only fueled more anger, as many believed the journalist should have simply admitted they were wrong. Their reputation took a serious hit. While some of their usual supporters defended them, arguing that the reaction was overblown, many others, including people on their own side, agreed that mocking a teenager was unnecessary. Some media personalities distanced themselves from the journalist, not wanting to be associated with the controversy. Online, the backlash was relentless. People dug up past instances where the same journalist had called for politicians' children to be left alone, exposing the hypocrisy. Memes, tweets, and even video compilations comparing their past statements spread rapidly, further damaging their credibility. As for Barron Trump and his family, they largely remained silent. Donald Trump, known for being vocal about media attacks, surprisingly did not issue a major statement right away. However, sources close to the family hinted that they were deeply disappointed but not surprised. Melania Trump, who has always been protective of Barron, reportedly saw this as yet another example of unfair treatment toward her son. Though no official statements were made immediately, it was clear that the Trump family had taken note of the situation. Whether they would address it publicly or let the public reaction speak for itself remained to be seen. Barron Trump's reaction to the public mocking wasn't loud, dramatic, or emotional, but that's exactly why it left people speechless. In a moment where many expected anger or frustration, he responded with composure, showing a level of maturity beyond his years. This wasn't just about handling an awkward situation, it was about rising above negativity without letting it define him. His calm and collected response spoke louder than any argument ever could. This incident also sparked a broader conversation about class and dignity in the face of public attacks. While some people resort to shouting or fighting back when criticized, Barron showed that sometimes silence and grace can be the most powerful response. It also raised an important question: why do some children of politicians get media protection while others don't? No matter where someone stands politically, it's hard to deny that kids should be treated with basic respect, regardless of who their parents are. What do you think? Should the media stay away from presidential children altogether, or is some level of public scrutiny inevitable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take on this. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more updates about political news and media controversies.